Hey, happy Friday, everybody. Hope you're all doing okay today. Look, today we have a goal. Here's today's goal. Today's goal is to use something called the discriminant, and that's this right here, to determine the number and type of solutions of a quadratic function in standard form. I should have put that there. Number and type of solutions of a quadratic function in standard form. Let me explain what I'm talking about. You probably remember that the solutions or zeros or roots or x-intercepts to a quadratic function is the place or places where the parabola crosses the x-intercept. So what we've seen, of course, is a parabola can cross 2 times, right? And when you cross 2 times, you're going to be able to find a real solution. In fact, you'll be able to find 2 real solutions. And when we say real, we mean there's real numbers there. Like they can be decimals, they can be fractions, they can be whole numbers, but you're going to get 2 of them. But sometimes a parabola can just barely touch the x-axis in exactly 1 point. This would be 1 real solution. Since we're supposed to actually always have 2, we actually call this a duplicity, meaning we count that 1 solution twice. But then what happens when it doesn't cross at all? Well, if it doesn't cross at all, it's not that there's no solution. We used to say that there's no solution. Actually, what we used to say to be true is no real solution. That's true. But here we are going to say 2 imaginary solutions. That's when the parabola does not cross the axis at all. And we're going to be able to use the discriminant to determine which situation we have. It actually goes pretty quickly and it's pretty easy, but these are our choices. We can have 2 real solutions, 1 real solution, which is a duplicity, and then 2 imaginary solutions where it doesn't cross at all. Let me show you the discriminant and show you how it works. So given the quadratic formula, the discriminant is inside this quadratic formula, and it actually lives right here. This right here is the discriminant. That right there, that b squared minus 4ac is the discriminant. And now it starts to make sense because this discriminant is under a square root. So if this number is positive, you'll be able to take the square root of it. And you'll always get the positive or negative. So you'll get a plus or minus, and you'll get 2 real solutions. If this ends up being 0, well, the square root of 0 is 0. So you're only going to get 1 solution. It'll be the negative b over 2a. What if this is negative? Well, if this whole thing is negative, the square root of a negative number is imaginary, and that's where we come up with our 2 imaginary solutions. So the discriminant is this little b squared minus 4ac, and I'm going to give you the conditions to show do you have 2 real solutions, 1 real solution, or 2 imaginary solutions? Let me show you how that works. All right, here's something that you definitely need in your notes because this explains the whole thing. I'm going to remind you that the b squared minus 4ac, which is the discriminant, this thing right here, is actually under a square root. That explains all of these things. Number 1, here are the 3 situations. Number 1, if b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0, and that basically means if it's positive. Well, if it's positive, you can take the square root of a positive number. Therefore, you get 2 real solutions because you always get a plus and a minus when you take a square root. So that makes sense. What happens if, number 2, b squared minus 4ac equals 0? What if you get a 0 underneath the square root? Well, the square root of 0 is only 0. You can only have 1 answer, so you get 1 real solution. What if b squared minus 4ac is less than 0? And what we mean is, what if it's negative? Well, you know, if you have a negative number under a square root, then you have imaginary solutions, and that's when you have 2 imaginary solutions. So basically, this is a test. You're going to be asked, how many solutions and what type do you have? And you're going to say, no problem. I'm going to figure out what b squared minus 4ac is and use this test. Make sure that's in your notes. Let's do some examples. All right, here's my first example. Notice the directions. How many solutions and what type does the quadratic equation have? And here's my quadratic equation. But one thing, you definitely have to put it in standard form. Let's subtract 1, and put that in standard form. It has to be in standard form, of course, because we need A, B, and C. So there's that. And don't forget, now here's my A. Right there, there's my B, there's my C. So if I were to put that in, B squared minus 4AC, let's put that in there. B is negative 10. I get negative 10 squared minus 4 times A is 3, and C is negative 1. Maybe you can see already this is going to end up being positive, but let's simplify it anyway. Negative 10 squared, of course, is 100. What's negative 4 times negative 3 times negative 1? That's positive 12, and I have 112. Now listen, this is not your answer. You do not have 112 solutions. That is a very common mistake. What we just did, though, is we realized that this is a positive number, and so B squared minus 4AC is greater than 0, and therefore our answer is 2 real solutions. And that comes from the notes that you just wrote down from the last thing I had on this board. What situation do we have? Clearly my answer is positive, and that leads me to 2 real solutions. Let's do another one where maybe we have a negative or a 0. All right, here's another example. It's already in standard form. That's good. It equals 0. That's good. We could solve it. By the way, it probably is not factorable. So if I was going to try to solve it, I'd probably need the quadratic formula, but that's different. Question is, how many solutions would I find? And what type? Are they imaginary? Or are they real? Is there 2? Is there 1? Well, let's identify A and B and C. Let's throw that in our discriminant. B squared minus 4AC. It's a discriminant because it's discriminating between what type of solutions we have. That's where the word's coming from. So now B is negative 11, so I'll be like, that's negative 11 squared minus 4 times A. A is negative 5. C is negative 3. And you can probably see here that this is going to end up being negative. So chances are we have a pretty good chance of having a oh, well, maybe not, huh? Well, doesn't look like it. Looks like we're going to have 2 solutions again. This is going to be 121. That's 20, and that's going to be negative 60 like that. 61. Okay. Do we have 61 solutions? No, we have 2 reals. I tried to just make it up as I went. Not good. Let's try another one. All right, last one. Then we'll be done with this, all right? Oh, I was meant to make this equal 0. There we go. Let's identify A, B, and C, throw it in the discriminant, and determine how many solutions do we have. All right, the discriminant is B squared minus 4AC. I find, of course, that if you write this down every time, then you'll have it memorized, right? And that's kind of what is going to be necessary, like that, like that. All right, 4 times, yeah. Just double check and make sure I got it right. This is going to be 9. This is positive 8, and that's a negative 32. Now, okay, we got there. And my answer here is negative 23. Does that mean you have negative 23 solutions? No. You know that since B squared minus 4AC is less than 0, that you have 2 imaginary solutions. This right here is your answer. All right, pretty simple. I've got a couple of review problems on the worksheet. Let's get it all done. It's due on Monday. Happy Friday again. Expect a quiz coming up on Tuesday, all right? You guys take care of yourselves. We'll talk later.